Ralph Reads, brought to you by TURN, the United Ronin Networks. My name is Ralph Anthony Garcia, also known as R4. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. On this edition of Ralph Reads, I continue commemorating its 25th anniversary on this miniseries, Pulp Fiction, penned by Roger Avary and Quentin Tarantino. Let's get to the next part of this epic right away. Let the reading commence. Fade up on the cartoon Speed Racer. Speed is giving a detailed description of all the features on his race car, the Mach 5, which he does at the beginning of every episode. Off screen, we hear a woman's voice.
Butch? Butch!
Dissolve to Butch's point of view. We're in the living room of a modest two-bedroom house in Alhambra, California, in the year 1972. Butch's mother, 35-ish, stands in the doorway leading into the living room. Next to her is a man dressed in the uniform of an American Air Force officer. The camera is the perspective of a 5-year-old boy.
Butch, stop watching TV for a second. We got a special visitor. Now, do you remember when I told you your daddy died in the POW camp? Well, this here is Captain Coons. He was in the POW camp with Daddy.
Captain Coons steps inside the room towards the little boy and bends down on one knee to bring him even with the boy's eye line. Hello, little man. Boy, I sure heard a bunch about you. See, I was a good friend of your dad's. We were in that Hanoi pit of hell over 5 years together. Hopefully you'll never have to experience this yourself, but when two men are in a situation like me and your dad were for as long as we were, you take on certain responsibilities of the other. If it had been me who had not made it, Major Coolidge would be talking right now to my son Jim. But the way it worked out is I'm talking to you, Butch. I got something for you. The captain pulls a gold wristwatch out of his pocket. This watch I got here was first purchased by your great-grandfather. It was bought by Private Doughboy Ernie Coolidge the day he set sail for Paris. This was your great-granddaddy's war watch made by the first company to ever make wristwatches. You see, up until then, people just carried pocket watches. Your great-granddaddy wore that watch every day he was in that war. Then, when he had done his duty, he went home to your great-grandmother, took the watch off his wrist and put it in an old coffee can. And in that can it stayed till your grandfather, Dane Coolidge, was called upon by his country to go overseas and fight the Germans once again. This time they called it World War II. Your great-grandfather gave it to your granddad for good luck. Unfortunately, Dane's luck wasn't as good as his old man's. Your granddad was a Marine and he was killed with all the other Marines at the Battle of Wake Island. Your granddad was facing death, and he knew it. None of those boys had any illusions about ever leaving the island alive. So 3 days before the Japanese took the island, your 22-year-old grandfather asked a gunner on an Air Force transport named Wanaki, a man he had never met before in his life, to deliver to his infant son, who he had never seen in the flesh, his gold watch. 3 days later, your grandfather was dead, but Wanaki kept his word. After the war was over, he paid a visit to your grandmother, delivering to your infant father his dad's gold watch. This watch was on your daddy's wrist when he was shot down over Hanoi. He was captured and put in a Vietnamese prison camp. Now, he knew if the gooks ever saw the watch, it'd be confiscated. The way your daddy looked at it, that watch was your birthright. And to be damned if some slopeheads were gonna put their greasy yellow hands on his boy's birthright. So he hid it in the one place he knew he could hide something, his ass. 5 long years, he wore this watch up his ass. Then when he died of dysentery, he gave me the watch. I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass for 2 years. Then after 7 years, I was sent home to my family, and now, little man, I give the watch to you. Captain Coons hands the watch to Butch. A little hand comes into frame to accept it. Cut to the locker room. The 27-year-old Butch Coolidge is dressed in boxing regalia, trunks, shoes, and gloves. He lies on the table catching a few Z's before his big fight. Almost as soon as we cut to him, he wakes up with a start, shaken by the bizarre memory. He wipes his sweaty face with his boxing glove. His trainer, Klondike, an older fireplug, opens the door a little, sticking his head in the room. Pandemonium seems to be breaking out behind Klondike in the hallway. It's time, Butch.
I'm ready.
Klondike steps inside, closing the door on the wild mob outside. He goes to the long yellow robe hanging on a hook. Butch hops off the table and, without a word, Klondike helps him on with the robe, which says on the back, Battling Butch Coolidge. The two men head for the door. Klondike opens the door for Butch. As Butch steps into the hallway, the crowd goes apeshit. Klondike closes the door behind him, leaving us in the quiet, empty locker room. Fade to black. The Gold Watch. We hear over the black and white title.
Well, Dan, it had to be the bloodiest and hands down the most brutal fight this city has ever seen.
The sound of chaos in the background. Fade in. Alley. Raining at night. A taxi is parked in a dark alley next to an auditorium. The sky is pissing down rain. We slowly dolly towards the parked car. The sound of the car radio can be heard coming from inside.
Coolidge was out of there faster than I've ever seen a victorious boxer vacate the ring. Do you think he knew Willis was dead?
My guess will be yes, Richard. I could see from my position here the frenzy in his eyes give way to the realization of what he was doing. I think any man will have left the ring that fast.
Dissolved to taxi, parked in the rain. Inside the taxi, behind the wheel, is a female cabbie named Esmeralda Villalobos. A young woman with exotic looks sits parked, drinking a steaming hot cup of coffee out of a white styrofoam cup. The sportcasters continue their coverage.
Do you feel this ring-death tragedy will have an effect on the world of boxing?
Oh, a tragedy like this can't help but shake the world of boxing to its very foundation. But it's of paramount importance that during the sad weeks ahead, the eyes of the WBA remain firmly fixed on the click.
Esmeralda shuts off the radio. She takes a sip of coffee, then hears a noise behind her in the alley. She sticks her head out of the car door to see. Boxing auditorium. A window about 3 stories high opens on the auditorium side of the alley. A gym bag is tossed out into a garbage dumpster below the window. Then, Butch Coolidge, still dressed in boxing trunks, shoes, gloves, and yellow robe, leaps to the dumpster below. Esmeralda's reaction takes in the strangeness of this sight. Gym bag in hand, Butch climbs out of the dumpster and runs to the taxi. Before he climbs in, he takes off his robe and throws it to the ground. Interior of taxi, parked. Butch, soaking wet, naked except for trunks, shoes, and gloves, hops in the back seat, slamming the door. Esmeralda, staring straight ahead, talks to Butch through the rear view mirror.
Are you the man I'm supposed to pick up?
If you're the cab I called, I'm the guy you're supposed to pick up.
Where to?
Out of here.
The ignition key is twisted. The engine roars to life. The meter is flipped on. Esmeralda's bare foot stomps on the gas pedal. Exterior of the boxing auditorium. The cab whips out of the alley, fishtailing on the wet pavement in front of the auditorium at a rapid pace. Inside Willis's locker room. Locker room door opens. English Dave fights his way through the pandemonium which is going on outside in the hall, shutting the door on the madness. Once inside, English Dave takes time to adjust his suit and tie. Mia is standing by the door. She sees Vincent with English Dave. Mia, how you doing?
Great. I never thank you for the dinner.
In the room, black boxer Floyd Ray Willis lies on the table, dead. His face looks like he went dunking for bees. His trainer is on his knees, head on Floyd's chest, crying over the body. The huge figure that is Marcellus Wallace stands at the table, hand on the trainer's shoulder, lending emotional support. We still do not see Marcellus clearly, only that he is big. Mia sits in a chair at the far end of the room. Marcellus looks up, sees English Dave, and walks over to him.
What you got?
He booked.
I'm prepared to scour the earth for this motherfucker. If Butch goes into Indochina, I want a nigga hiding in a bowl of rice ready to pop a cap in his ass.
I'll take care of it. Inside the cab, Butch gets one of his boxing gloves off. Esmeralda watches in the rear-view mirror. He tries to roll down one of the backseat windows, but can't find the roll bar.
Hey, how do I open the window back here?
I have to do it.
She presses a button and the back window moves down. Butch tosses his boxing glove out the window, then starts untying the other one. Esmeralda can't keep quiet anymore.
Mister. Hey, mister.
What?
You were in the fight on the radio. You the fighter?
Butch tosses his other glove out the window.
What gave you that idea?
Oh, come on. You're him. I know you're him. Tell me you him.
I'm him.
You killed the other boxing man.
He's dead?
The radio said he was dead.
Butch finished wiping himself down. Butch says to himself,
Sorry about that, Floyd.
He tosses the towel out the window. Silence as Butch digs in his bag for a t-shirt.
What does it feel like?
Butch, as he finds his shirt, responds,
What does what feel like?
Killing a man. Beating another man to death with your bare hands.
Butch pulls on his t-shirt.
Are you some kind of weirdo?
No, it's just a subject that I have much interest in. You are the first person I ever met who has killed somebody. So, what was it like to kill a man?
Tell you what, you give me one of them cigarettes up there and I'll tell you all about it.
Esmeralda bounces in her seat with excitement. Butch leans forward. Esmeralda, keeping her eyes on the road, passes a cigarette back to him. He takes it. Then, still not looking behind her, she brings up her hand, a lit match in it. Butch lights his smoke, then blows out the match. He takes a long drag. So, he looks at her license.
Esmeralda Villalobos? Is that Mexican?
The name is Spanish, but I'm Colombian.
It's a very pretty name.
It means Esmeralda of the Wolves.
That's one hell of a name you got there, sister.
Thank you. And what is your name?
Butch.
Butch. What does it mean?
I'm an American, honey. Our names don't mean shit. Anyway, moving right along. What is it you want to know, Esmeralda?
I want to know what it feels like to kill a man.
I couldn't tell you. I didn't know he was dead till you told me he was dead. Now I know he's dead. Do you want to know how I feel about it?
Esmeralda nods her head yes.
I don't feel the least bit bad about it.
Cut to a phone booth. We dolly around it as Butch talks inside.
What I tell you, as soon as the word got out a fix was in, the odds would be out of control. Hey, if he was a better fighter, he'd still be alive. If he never laced up his gloves in the first place, which he never should have done, he'd still be alive. Well, enough about the poor, unfortunate Mr. Floyd. Let's talk about the rich and prosperous Mr. Butch. How many bookies you spread it around with? 8? How long to collect? So by tomorrow evening, you'll have it all. Good news, Scotty. That is real good news. I understand a few stragglers aside. Me and Fabian gonna leave in the morning. It should take us a couple of days to get to Knoxville. Next time we see each other, it'll be on Tennessee time. Cool, brother.
Butch hangs up the phone. He looks at the cab, waiting to take him wherever he wants to go. Butch says to himself in French with English subtitles,
Fabian, my love, our adventure begins.
Cut to the exterior of the motel. Esmeralda's taxi pulled into the motel parking lot. The rain has stopped, but the night is still soaked. Butch gets out. Now fully dressed in t-shirt, jeans, and high school athletic jacket, he leans in the driver's side window.
4560.
Butch hands her the money.
Merci beaucoup. And here's a little something for the effort.
Butch holds up a $100 bill. Esmeralda's eyes light up. She goes to take it. Butch holds it out of her reach.
Now, if anybody should ask you who your fare was tonight, what are you gonna tell them?
The truth. 3 well-dressed, slightly toasted Mexicans.
He gives her the bill.
Hasta luego, Butch.
He tweaks her nose. She smiles, and he turns and walks away. She drives off. Enter the motel room. We cut to the interior of the motel. Butch enters and turns on the light. Lying curled up on the bed, fully dressed, with her back to us, is Butch's French girlfriend, Fabienne.
Keep the light off.
Butch flicks the switch back, making the room dark again.
Is that better, Sugar Pop?
Oui. Hard day at the office?
Pretty hard. I got into a fight.
Poor baby. Can we make spoons?
Butch climbs into bed, spooning Fabienne from behind. When Butch and Fabienne speak to each other, they speak in baby talk.
I was looking at myself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had a butt.
You were looking in the mirror, and you wish you had some pot?
A pot. A pot belly. Pot belly's so sexy.
Well, you should be happy, because you have one.
Shut up, Faso. I don't have a butt. I have a bit of a tummy like Madonna when she did Lucky Star. It's not the same thing.
I didn't realize there was a difference between a tummy and a pot belly.
The difference is huge.
You want me to have a pot?
No, pot bellies make a man look either oafish or like a gorilla. But on a woman, a pot belly is very sexy. The rest of you is normal. Normal face, normal legs, normal hips, normal ass, but with a big, perfectly round pot belly. If I had one, I'd wear a t-shirt 2 sizes too small to accentuate it.
You think guys would find that attractive?
I don't give a damn what men find attractive. It's unfortunate what we find pleasing to the touch and pleasing to the eye is seldom the same.
If you have a pot belly, I'd punch you in it.
You punch me in my belly?
Right in the belly.
I'd smother you. I'd drop it right on your face till you couldn't breathe.
You'd do that to me?
Yes.
Did you get everything, Sugar Pop?
Yes, I did.
Good job.
Did everything go as planned?
You didn't listen to the radio?
I never listened to your fights. Were you the winner?
Oh, I won, all right.
Are you still retiring?
Sure am.
What about the man you fought?
Floyd retired, too.
Fabienne smiles.
Really? He won't be fighting no more?
Nope, not no more.
So it all worked out in the finish.
We ain't at the finish yet, baby.
Fabienne rolls over, and Butch gets on top of her. They kiss.
We're in a lot of danger, aren't we?
Butch nods his head yes.
If they find us, they'll kill us, won't they?
Butch nods his head yes.
But they won't find us, will they?
Butch nods his head no.
Do you still want me to go with you?
Butch nods his head yes.
I don't want to be a burden or a nuisance.
Butch's hand goes out of frame and starts massaging her crotch. Fabienne reacts.
Say it.
Fabienne, I want you to be with me.
Forever?
And ever.
Fabienne lies her head back. Butch continues to massage her crotch.
Do you love me?
We.
Butch, will you give me oral pleasure?
Butch kisses her on the mouth.
Will you kiss it?
She nods her head yes.
But you first.
Butch's head goes down out of frame to carry out the oral pleasure. Fabienne's face is alone in the frame. Fabienne says in French with English subtitles,
Bush, my love, the adventure begins.
Fade to black. Fade up. Motel room. The same motel room, except empty. We hear the shower running in the bathroom. The camera moves to the bathroom doorway. We see Fabienne in a white terry cloth robe that seems to swallow her up. She's drying her head with a towel. Butch is inside the shower, washing up. Steam fills the bathroom. Butch turns the shower off and opens the door, popping his head out.
I think I cracked a rib.
Giving me oral pleasure?
No, retard. From the fight.
Don't call me retard.
Butch, in a mongoloid voice, says,
My name is Fabi. My name is Fabi.
Shut up, fuckhead! I hate that mongoloid voice!
Okay, sorry, I take it back. Can I have a towel, please? Miss Beautiful Tulip.
Oh, I like that. I like being called a tulip. Tulip is much better than mongoloid.
She finishes drying her hair and wraps the towel like a turban on her head.
I didn't call you a mongoloid. I called you a retard, but I took it back.
She hands him a towel.
Merci beaucoup.
Butch,
As he dries his head, he replies,
Yes, lemon pie?
where are we going to go?
I'm not sure yet. Wherever you want. We're gonna get a lot of money from this. But it ain't gonna be so much we can live like hogs in the fat house forever. I was thinking we could go somewhere in the South Pacific. The kind of money we'll have will carry us a long way down there.
So if we want it, we can live in Bora Bora?
You betcha. And if after a while you don't dig Bora Bora, then we can move over to Tahiti or Mexico.
But I don't speak Spanish.
You don't speak boring either. Besides, Mexican is easy. ¿Dónde está el zapateria?
What does that mean?
Where's the shoe store?
¿Dónde está el zapateria?
Excellent pronunciation. You'll be my little mamacita in no time.
Butch exits the bathroom. We stay on Fabian as she brushes her teeth. Butch keeps on from the other room.
¿Qué hora es?
¿Qué hora es?
What time is it?
What time is it?
Time for bed. Sweet dream, Jelly Bean.
Fabian brushes her teeth. We watch her for a moment or two. Then she remembered something.
Butch.
She walks out of the bathroom to ask Butch a question, only to find him sound asleep in his bed. She looks at him for a moment.
Forget it.
She exits frame, going back in the bathroom. We stay on the wide shot of the unconscious Butch in bed. Fade to black. Fade up. Same shot as before. The next morning, we find Butch still asleep in bed. Fabian brushes her teeth half in and half out of the bathroom so she can watch TV at the same time. She still wears the terry cloth robe from the night before. On TV, William Smith and a bunch of Hell's Angels are taking on the entire Vietnamese army in the film The Losers. Butch wakes from his sleep as if a scary monster was chasing him. He startles Fabian.
Merda! You startled me. Did you have a bad dream?
Butch squints down the front of the bed at her, trying to focus. Butch, still trying to chase the cobwebs away, sees on TV Hell's Angels tear-assing through a Vietnamese prison camp.
What are you watching?
A motorcycle movie. I'm not sure the name.
Are you watching it?
Fabian enters the room.
In a way.
Why?
Would you like for me to switch it off?
Would you please?
She reaches over and turns off the TV.
It's a little too early in the morning for explosions and war.
What was it about?
How should I know? You're the one watching it.
Fabian laughs.
No, imbecile. What was your dream about?
Oh, I don't remember. It's really rare I remember a dream.
You just woke up from it.
Fabian, I'm not lying to you. I don't remember.
Well, let's look at the grumpy man in the morning. I didn't say you were lying. It's just odd you don't remember your dreams. I always remember mine. Did you know you talk in your sleep?
I do not talk in my sleep. Do I talk in my sleep?
You did last night.
What did I say? As she lays on top of him, she answers.
I don't know. I couldn't understand you.
She kisses Butch.
Why don't you get up and we'll get some breakfast at that breakfast place with the pancakes.
One more kiss, and I'll get up.
Fabian gives Butch a sweet, long kiss.
Satisfied?
Yep.
Then get up, lazy bones.
Butch climbs out of the bed and starts pulling clothes out of the suitcase that Fabian brought.
What time is it?
Almost 9 in the morning. What time does our train arrive?
11.
I'm gonna order a big plate of blueberry pancakes with maple syrup, eggs over easy, and 5 sausages.
Butch, surprised at her potential appetite, asked her,
Anything to drink with that?
Butch is finished dressing. Fabian, referring to his clothes, says to him,
Oh yes, that looks nice. To drink, a tall glass of orange juice and a black cup of coffee. After that, I'm going to have a slice of pie.
As he goes to the suitcase, Butch asked,
Pie for breakfast?
Any time of the day is a good time for pie. Blueberry pie to go with the pancakes. And on top, a thin slice of melted cheese.
Where's my watch?
It's there.
No, it's not. It's not here.
Have you looked?
By now, Butch is frantically rummaging through the suitcase.
Yeah, I fucking looked.
Now he's throwing clothes.
What the fuck do you think I'm doing? Are you sure you got it?
Fabian can hardly speak. She's never seen Butch this way.
Yes, beside the table drawer.
On the little kangaroo?
Yes, on the little kangaroo.
Well, it's not here.
Fabian, on the verge of tears, says,
Well, it should be.
Oh, it most definitely should be here, but it's not, so where the fuck is it?
Fabian is crying and scared. Butch lowers his voice, which only serves to make him more menacing.
Fabian, that was my father's fucking watch. You know what my father went through to get me that watch? I don't have time to get into it right now, but he went through a lot. Now all this other shit you could have set on fire, but I specifically reminded you not to forget my father's watch. Now think. Did you get it?
I believe so.
You believe so? You either did or you didn't. Which one is it?
That I did.
Are you sure?
No.
Butch freaks out and punches the air.
Fuck! Fuck, motherfucker! Fuck, motherfucker! Goddamn motherfucker! Do you know how stupid you fucking are? No!
Fabian screams in horror as she backs into a corner. Butch picks up the motel TV and throws it against the wall. Fabian continues to scream horrifically. Butch looks towards her, suddenly calm.
It's not your fault. You left it at the apartment.
He bends down in front of the woman who has sunk to the floor. He touches her hand. She flinches.
If you did leave it at the apartment, it's not your fault. I had you bring a bunch of shit. I reminded you about it, but I didn't illustrate how personal the watch was to me. If all I gave a fuck about was my watch, I should have told you. You're not a mind reader, right?
He kisses her hand, then rises. Fabian is still sniffling. Butch goes to the closet.
I'm sorry.
Butch puts on his high school jacket.
Don't be. It just means I won't be able to eat breakfast with you.
Why does it mean that?
Because I'm going back to the apartment to get my watch.
Won't the gangsters be looking for you there?
That's what I'm going to find out. If they are, and I don't think I can handle it, I'll split.
Butch rises from the floor.
I was so dreadful. I saw your watch. I thought I brought it. I'm so sorry.
Butch brings her close and puts his hands on her face.
Don't feel bad, Sugar Pop. Nothing you could ever do would make me permanently angry at you. I love you, remember?
He digs some money out of his wallet.
Now here's some money. Order those pancakes and have a great breakfast.
Don't go.
I'll be back before you can say blueberry pie.
Blueberry pie.
Well, maybe not that fast, but fast enough, okay?
Okay.
And with that, he's out the door. Fabian sits on the bed and looks at the money he gave her. Enter the interior of the Honda, moving during the day. Butch is beating the steering wheel and the dash with his fists as he drives down the street.
Of all the fucking things she could have forgot, she forgets my father's watch. I specifically reminded her not to forget it. Bedside table, hold the kangaroo. I said the words, don't forget my fucking father's watch.
The little Honda races towards its destination as fast as its little engine will take it. Cut to a parking meter. Red flag rises up, then out, leaving the arrow pointing at 1 hour. Butch isn't completely reckless. He has parked his car a couple of blocks from his apartment to check things out before he goes bopping through the front door. Butch walks down the alley until he gets to another street. Then he discreetly glances out. Enter the exterior of the street of Butch's apartment. Everything seems normal. More or less the right number of cars in the street. None of the parked cars appear out of place. None of them have a couple of goons sitting inside. Basically, it looks like normal morning activity in front of Butch's home. Butch peers around the wall, taking in the vital information. Butch walks out of the alley and is ready for anything. He crosses the street and enters his apartment courtyard. Across the street from Butch's building, on the corner, is a combination donut shop and Japanese restaurant. A big sign sticks up in the air with the name Teriyaki Donut and a graphic of a donut sticking out of a bowl of rice. We enter the exterior of Butch's apartment courtyard. Butch is now in the courtyard of his North Hollywood apartment building. Once again, everything appears normal. The laundry room, the pool, his apartment door, nothing appears disturbed. Butch climbs the stairs leading to his apartment, number 12. He steps outside the door and listens inside. Nothing. Butch slowly inserts the key into the door, quietly opening it. Enter the interior of Butch's apartment. His apartment hasn't been touched. He cautiously steps inside, shuts the door, and takes a quick look around. Obviously, no one is there. Butch walks into his modest kitchen and opens the refrigerator. He takes out a carton of milk and drinks from it. With carton in hand, Butch surveys the apartment. Then he goes to the bedroom. His bedroom is like the rest of the apartment, neat, clean, and anonymous. The only things personal in his room are a few boxing trophies, an Olympic silver medal, a framed issue of Ring magazine with Butch on the cover, and a poster of Jerry Quarry and one of George Chuvalo. Sure enough, there's the watch, just like he said it was, on the bedside table, hanging on his little kangaroo statue. He walks through the apartment and back into the kitchen. He opens a cupboard and takes out a box of Pop-Tarts. Putting down the milk, he opens the box, takes out 2 Pop-Tarts, and puts them in the toaster. Butch glances to his right. His eyes fall on something. What he sees is a small, compact, Czech M61 submachine gun with a huge silencer on it, lying on his kitchen counter. He picks up the intimidating piece of weaponry and examines it. Then, a toilet flushes. Butch looks up to the bathroom door, which is parallel to the kitchen. There's someone behind it. Like a rabbit caught in a radish patch, Butch freezes, not knowing what to do. The bathroom door opens, and Vincent Vega steps out of the bathroom, tightening his belt. In his hand is the book, Modesty Blaze, by Peter O'Donnell. Vince and Butch lock eyes. Vincent freezes. Butch doesn't move, except to point the M61 in Vincent's direction. Neither man opens his mouth. Then, the toaster loudly kicks up the Pop-Tarts. That's all the situation needed. Butch's finger hits the trigger. Muffled fire shoots out of the end of the gun. Vincent is seemingly racked with 20 bullets simultaneously lifting him off his feet, propelling him through the air, and crashing through the glass shower door at the end of the bathroom. By the time Butch removes his finger from the trigger, Vincent is annihilated. Butch stands frozen, amazed at what just happened. His look goes from the grease spot in the bathroom that was once Vincent down to the powerful piece of artillery in his grip. With the respect it deserves, Butch carefully places the M61 back on the kitchen counter. He wipes down the fingerprints, then exits the apartment quickly. Entered the exterior of the apartment courtyard. Butch, not running, but walking very rapidly, crosses the courtyard, comes out of the apartment building, crosses the street, goes through the alley, and into his car in one Steadicam shot. Entered the exterior of the Honda. Butch looks out the window at his former home.
That's how you're gonna beat him, Butch. They keep underestimating you.
This makes the boxer laugh out loud. As he laughs, he flips a tape in the cassette player. When the music starts, he sings along with it. He drives by the apartment, but is stopped at the light on the corner across from Teriyaki Donut. Butch is still chuckling, singing along with the song, as we see, through the windshield, the big man himself, Marcellus Wallace, exiting Teriyaki Donut, carrying a box of 12 donuts and 2 large styrofoam cups of coffee. He steps off the curb, crossing the street in front of Butch's car. This is the first time we see Marcellus clearly. Laughing Boy stops when he sees the big man directly in front of him. When Marcellus is in front of Butch's car, he casually glances to his left, sees Butch, continues walking, then stops. Double take.
Am I really seeing what I'm seeing?
Butch doesn't wait for the big man to answer his own question. He stomps on the gas pedal. The little Honda slams into Marcellus, sending him the donuts and the coffee hitting the pavement at 30 miles an hour. Butch cuts into cross traffic and is broadsided by a gold Camaro Z28, breaking all the windows in the Honda and sending it up on the sidewalk. Butch sits dazed and confused in the crumpled mess of what at one time was Fabian's Honda. Blood flows from his nostrils. The still functional tape player continues to play. A pedestrian pokes his head inside. "Jesus, are you okay?" Butch looked at him, spaced out.
"I guess."
Marcellus Wallace lies sprawled out in the street. Gawkers gather around the body. "He's dead! He's dead! Oh, he's most definitely fucking dead!" This jerk's yelling makes Marcellus come to. Two pedestrians help the shaken Butch out of the wreckage. The woozy Marcellus gets to his feet. "If you need a witness in court, I'll be glad to help. He was a drunken maniac. He hit you and crashed into that car." Marcellus, still incoherent, asks, "Who?" "Him," the Gawker said, pointing at Butch. Marcellus follows the Gawker's finger and sees Butch Coolidge down the street, looking a shambles.
"Well, I'll be damned."
The big man takes out a .45 automatic and the Gawkers back away fast. Marcellus starts moving towards Butch. Butch sees the fierce figure making a wobbly beeline toward him.
Sacre bleu!
Marcellus brings up his weapon and fires, but he's so hurt, shaky, and dazed that his arm goes wild. He hits a looky-loo woman in the hip. She falls to the ground, screaming,
"Oh my God! I've been shot!"
That's all Butch needs to see. He is out of here. Marcellus runs after him. The crowd looks agape. Butch is in a mad, limping run. The big man's hot on his ass with a cockeyed, wobbly run. Butch cuts across traffic and dashes into a business with a sign that reads Mason-Dixie Pawn Shop. Inside the Mason-Dixie Pawn Shop, Maynard, a hillbilly-looking boy, stands behind the counter of his pawn shop when all of a sudden, chaos in the form of Butch races into his world.
"Can I help you with something?" "Shut up!"
Butch quickly takes measure of the situation, then stands next to the door.
"Now you wait just a goddamn minute!"
Before Maynard can finish his threat, Marcellus charges in. He doesn't get past the doorway because Butch lands his fist in Marcellus's face. The gangster's feet go out from under him, and the big man falls flat on his back. Butch pounces on the fallen body, punching him twice more in the face. Butch takes the gun out of Marcellus's hand. Butch then places the barrel of the .45 between his eyes, pulls back the hammer, and places his open hand behind the gun to shield the splatter.
"Well, guess what, big man? You caught me!" "Hold it right there, goddammit."
Butch and Marcellus look up at Maynard, who's brandishing a pump-action shotgun aimed at the two men.
"Look, mister, this ain't any of your fucking business." "I'm making it my business. Now toss that gun."
Butch does.
"Now, you on top, stand up and come to the counter."
Butch slowly gets up and moves to the counter. As soon as he gets there, Maynard hauls off, hitting him hard in the face with the butt of the shotgun, knocking Butch down and out. After Butch goes down, Maynard calmly lays the shotgun on the counter and moves to the telephone. Marcellus Wallace, from his position on the floor, groggily watches the pawn shop owner dial a number. Maynard waits on the line while the other end rings. Then it picks up.
"Zed, it's Maynard. The spider just caught a couple flies."
Marcellus passes out as we fade to black. We fade up to the pawn shop back room. Butch and Marcellus are tied up in two separate chairs. In their mouths are two S&M style ball gags. A belt goes around their heads and a little red ball sticks in their mouths. Both men are unconscious. Maynard steps in with a fire extinguisher and sprays both guys until they're wide awake and wet as otters. The two prisoners look up at their captors. Maynard stands in front of them, fire extinguisher in one hand, shotgun in the other, and Marcellus's .45 sticking in his belt.
"Nobody kills anybody in my place of business except me or Zed."
A buzzer buzzes.
And that's Zed.
Without saying another word, Maynard climbs up the stairs that led to red curtains and goes through them. We hear, on the other side of the curtains, Maynard lets Zed inside the store. Butch and Marcellus look around the room. The basement of the pawn shop has been converted into a dungeon. After taking in their predicament, Butch and Marcellus look at each other, all traces of hostility gone, replaced by a terror they both share at what they've gotten themselves into. Maynard and Zed come through the curtains. Zed is an even more intense version of Maynard, if such a thing is possible. The two hillbillies are obviously brothers, where Maynard is a vicious pit bull, Zed is a deadly cobra. Zed walks in and stands in front of the two captives. He inspects them for a long time, then says,
You said you waited for me? I did. Then how come they all beat up? They did that to each other. They was fighting when they came in. This one was gonna shoot that one. You were gonna shoot him? Huh, boy?
Butch makes no reply.
Hey, is Grace gonna be okay in front of this place? Yeah, it's Tuesday, ain't it? No, it's Thursday. Then she'll be fine. Bring out the Gimp.
I think the Gimp's sleeping.
Well, I guess you'll just have to wake him up now, won't you?
Maynard opens a trap door in the floor. Wake up! Maynard reaches into the hole and comes back holding onto a leash. He gives it a rough yank and, from below the floor, rises the Gimp. The Gimp is a man they kept dressed from head to toe in black leather bondage gear. There are zippers, buckles, and studs here and there on the body. On his head is a black leather mask with 2 eye holes and a zipper closed for a mouth. They keep him in a hole in the floor big enough for a large dog. Zed takes the chair, sits in it in front of the 2 prisoners, then lowers into it. Maynard hands the Gimp's leash to Zed, then backs away. Down! The Gimp gets on his knees. Maynard hangs back while Zed appraises the 2 men.
Who's first?
Well, I ain't for sure yet. Then with his little finger, Zed does a silent eeny, meeny, miny, mo, just his mouth mouthing the words as his finger going back and forth between the 2. Butch and Marcellus are terrified. Maynard looks back and forth at the victims. The Gimp's eyes go from one to the other inside the mask. Zed continues his silent sing-song with his finger moving left to right, then it stops. The 2 shot. After a beat, the camera moves to the right, zeroing in on Marcellus. Zed stands up.
Wanna do it here?
Nah, drag Big Boy to Russell's old room. Zed grabs Marcellus's chair and drags him into Russell's old room. Russell, no doubt, was some other poor bastard that has the misfortune of stumbling into the Mason-Dixie pawn shop. Whatever happened to Russell is known only to Maynard and Zed because his old room, a back room in the back of the back room, is empty. As Marcellus is dragged away, he locks eyes with Butch before he disappears behind the door of Russell's old room. Maynard says to the Gimp, "Get up." The Gimp rises. Maynard ties the Gimp's leash to a hook on the ceiling.
Keep an eye on this one.
The Gimp bows its head yes. Maynard disappears into Russell's old room. There must be a stereo in there, because suddenly the Judds singing in harmony fills the air. Butch looks at the Gimp. The Gimp giggles from underneath the mask as if this were the funniest moment in the history of comedy. From behind the door, we hear country music, struggling, and,
"Whoa, this boy's got a bit of a fight in him."
We then hear Maynard and Zed beat on Marcellus.
"Oh, you want to fight? You want to fight? Good! I like to fight!"
Butch pauses, listens to the voices, then in a panic, hurriedly struggles to get free. The Gimp is laughing wildly. The ropes are on too tight and Butch can't break free. The gimp slaps his knee, laughing. Then we hear,
That's it! That's it, boy! You're doing fine! Ooh, just like that! That's good!
grunting faster.
Stay still! Stay still, goddamn you! Zed, goddammit! Get over here and hold him!
Butch stops struggling and lifts up on his arms. Then, quite easily, the padded chair backslides up and off as if it were never connected by a bolt. The gimp sees this and its eyes widen. Huh? The gimp flails wildly, trying to get the leash off the hook. He tries to yell, but all that comes out are excited gurgles and grunts. Butch is out of his chair, quickly dispensing 3 boxer's punches to its face. The punches knock the gimp out, making him fall to his knees. This hanging himself by the leash attached to the hook. Butch removes the ball gag, then silently makes his way through the red curtains. Butch sneaks to the door. The interior of the pawn shop. You'll see Butch sneak to the door. On the counter is a big set of keys with a large Z connected to the ring. Grabbing them, he's about to go out when he stops and listens to the hillbilly psychopaths having their way with Marcellus. Butch decides, for the life of him, he can't leave anybody in a situation like that. So he begins rooting around the pawn shop for a weapon to bash those hillbillies' heads in with. He picks up a big destructive-looking hammer, then discards it. Not destructive enough. He picks up a chainsaw, thinks about it for a moment, then puts it back. Next, a large Louisville slugger he tries on for size, but then he spots what he's been looking for, a samurai sword. It hangs in its hand-carved wood sheath from a nail on the wall next to a neon Dad's old-fashioned root beer sign. Butch takes the sword off the wall, removing it from its sheath. It's a magnificent piece of steel. It seemed to glisten in the low wattage light of the pawn shop. Butch touches his thumb to the blade to see if the sword is just for show. Not on your life. It's as sharp as it gets. This weapon seems made to order for the Brothers Grimm downstairs. Holding the sword pointed downward, Takakura Ken style, he disappears through the red curtains to take care of business. Back inside the back room, Butch quietly sneaks down the stairs leading to the dungeon. Sodomy and the Judds can still be heard going behind the closed door that leads to Russell's old room. Inside Russell's old room, Butch's hand comes into frame, pushing the door open. It swings open silently, revealing the sodomists who have switched positions. Zed is now bent over Marcellus, who is bent over a wooden horse. Maynard watches. Both have their backs to Butch. Maynard faces the camera, grinning, while Butch comes up behind him with the sword. Miserable, violated, and looking like a bloody rag doll, Marcellus, red ball gag still in his mouth, opens his watery eyes to see Butch coming up behind Maynard. His eyes widen.
Hey, hillbilly.
Maynard turns and sees Butch holding the sword. Butch screams with one mighty swing, slashes Maynard across the front, moving past him, eyes and blade now locked on Zed. Maynard stands trembling, his front sliced open in shock. Butch, while never taking his eyes off Zed, thrusts the sword behind him, skewering Maynard, then extracts it, pointing the blade towards Zed. Maynard collapses. Zed disengages from Marcellus in a hurry, and his eyes go from the tip of Butch's sword to Marcellus's .45 automatic, which lies within reach. Butch's eyes follow Zed's. You want that gun, Zed, huh? Who'll pick it up? Zed's hand inches towards the weapon. Butch grips the sword tighter. Zed studies Butch. Butch looks hard at Zed. Then a voice says,
Step aside, Butch.
Butch steps aside, revealing Marcellus standing behind him, holding Maynard's pump-action shotgun. Zed is blasted in the groin. Down he goes, screaming in agony. Marcellus, looking down at his whimpering rapist, ejects the used shotgun shell. Butch lowers the sword and hangs back. Not a word until...
You okay?
Nah, man. I'm pretty fucking far from okay.
What now?
What now? Well, let me tell you what now. I'm gonna call a couple pipe-hitting niggas who'll go to work on Holmes here with a pair of pliers and a blowtorch. You hear me talking, hillbilly boy? I ain't through with you by a damn sight. I'ma get medieval on your ass.
I meant what now between me and you?
Oh, that what now? Well, let me tell you what now between me and you. There is no me and you. Not no more.
So we cool?
Yeah, man. We cool. Two things. Don't tell nobody about this. This shit's between me, you, and his soon-to-be living the rest of his short-ass life in agonizing pain rapist here. It ain't nobody's business. Two, you leave town tonight, right now. And when you're gone, you stay gone, or you'll be gone. You lost all your LA privileges, deal?
Deal.
Go on now. Get your ass out of here.
Butch leaves Russell's old room through the red curtains. Marcellus walks over to a phone, dialing a number. Marcellus, into the phone, says,
Hello, Mr. Wolf. It's Marcellus. Got a bit of a situation.
Butch, still shaking in his boots, exits the pawn shop. He looks ahead and sees, parked in front of the establishment, Zed's big chrome chopper with a teardrop gas tank that has the name Grace on it. He climbs aboard, takes out the keys with the big Z on them, and starts up the huge hog. It rumbles to life, making sounds like a rocket fighting for orbit. Butch twists the accelerator handle and speeds off. We cut back and forth between the interior of Butch and Fabian's hotel room. Fabian stands in front of a mirror wearing a Frankie Says Relax t-shirt, singing along with music coming from a boombox. The exterior of a city street, the chopper, is moving. Butch drives down the street, humping a hot dog named Grace. He checks his father's watch. It says 10:30. The song in the motel room plays over this. Extension, motel room. Butch rides up on Grace. He hops off and runs inside the motel room while we stay outside with the bike.
Butch, I was so worried.
Honey, grab your radio and your purse and let's get the fuck out of here.
But what about all our bags?
Fuck the bags. We'll miss our train if we don't get to going now.
Is everything well? Are we in danger?
We're cool. In fact, we're super cool. But we gots to go. I'll wait for you outside.
Butch runs out and hops back on the bike. Fabian exits the motel room with the boombox and a large purse. When she sees Butch on the chopper, she stops dead.
Where did you get this motorcycle?
It's a chopper, baby. Hop on.
Fabian slowly approaches the two-wheeled demon.
What happened to my Honda?
Sorry, baby. I crashed that Honda.
Are you hurt?
I might have broken my nose, no biggie.
She doesn't move. Butch looks at her.
Honey, we gotta hit the fucking road. Come on, we gotta go fucking now. Let's go.
Fabian starts to cry. Butch realizes that this is not the way to get her on the bike. He turns off the engine and he reaches out and takes her hand.
I'm sorry, baby love.
You were gone so long, I started to think dreadful thoughts.
I'm sorry I worried you, sweetie. Everything's fine. Hey, how was your breakfast?
It was good. good.
Did you get the blueberry pancakes?
No, they didn't have blueberry pancakes, so I had to get buttermilk. Are you sure you're okay?
Baby love, from the moment I left you, this has been, without a doubt, the single weirdest day of my entire life. Climb on, and I'll tell you all about it.
Fabian does climb on. Butch starts her up.
Butch, whose motorcycle is this?
It's a chopper, baby. That's what it is.
Whose chopper is this?
Zed's.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
And with that, the two lovebirds peel away on Grace as the song on the boombox rises. Fade to black. We have reached the end of this portion of the miniseries on Ralph Reads. I would like, or rather love, to thank my queens and kings, fellow royalty, for stopping by. You could contact me on Facebook, Ralph Anthony Garcia, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at rgmc2407, email rgmc2407@gmail.com, where if you would like to leave a small donation, please use the Zelle app or paypal.me/rgmc2407 or the Cash App. My cash tag is rgmc2407. You can also find me on my other channel, RGMC, Ralph Garcia, Master of Ceremonies, and right here on the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Fellow royalty, pick up a good book, read a good story, and set your good self free. I appreciate you, and I love you like cooked food. I'll see you fellow sexy people on the continuation of the Pulp Fiction miniseries on Ralph Reads. Y'all be good.